Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Good Gamers Podcast 8-Bit Banter. Now, let's talk video games, and this week we're talking about really the future. So, the big thing on the horizon right now is this whole VR reality thing, the whole virtual reality stuff. What are you guys' thoughts on it? Are you excited about the sort of, implications of all this new technology coming at the front, or do you think it's sort of another peripheral that'll be a waste of time?
Well, I have to see it firsthand, because I even if it becomes just a peripheral, I think it could be a popular one. It's right now I'm not convinced it will be industry changing. I need to see it firsthand to really make that decision.
So coming from someone who tried out an Oculus Rift, the DK2, it's awesome. And VR, I do think is going to be a huge game changer, just because it kind of opens the door for more engrossing experiences, I guess, because especially with first person, I mean, it really only works with first person type games, because otherwise it doesn't really work to see yourself in third person through a virtual reality headset. It doesn't really make sense that way. But as for the way VR works in general, especially with head tracking, which is just mind-blowing in my opinion, at least, the way that it kind of gets you into the world of what you're playing as and makes you forget that there's a world outside of the video game is pretty neat.
But one of the things to mention as well, Palmer Luckey, who's the inventor of the Oculus Rift, he's said he has an ambition to get one of these in every single home. So he wants this to be like the new TV, as it were.
Yeah.
Now, we've got a lot of them on the table right now, and a lot of people are doing very similar but very different things as well. So we've got the Oculus Rift, which is the most well-known one. If someone says, think of a VR headset, that's what comes to mind straight away. And these have been sort of in circulation for the last, 2 years now, maybe, for the developer kits?
Yeah.
And we're going to see the actual release 2016, is it, that we're expecting that? Or is it like later on this year?
I think they were aiming for this year, but it all depends on kind of the tech and whatnot. They're at least going to have a third development kit this year, I imagine, at the very least, if not a first gen consumer version.
Well, also Sony have been coming out with their Project Morpheus, and they've been, showcasing that off. And they've, was it Oculus that partnered with Samsung, or was it Sony that partnered with Samsung?
No,
because they have
it was Oculus. They have the, what is it called? It's the one where you put a Galaxy Note into it, you slide it in there, and it turns the Galaxy Note into a screen for a VR headset. I tried one of those as well. They're okay. Honestly,
it's known as the Samsung Gear. That's what it's called.
Yeah, okay. But as far as the difference between Oculus Rift and the Samsung Gear, the Rift just feels better, in my opinion. But at the same time, it's neat that they at least have a conceptual consumer version that pretty much anyone with a Note can use. But I just don't see the worth in it.
And the most recent one that was announced was the Microsoft Holo-Lens. Now, they've gone a different sort of path with it, which is one of the things that I'm very interested with it. It's one of the things I think with Microsoft, their solutions to stuff are a lot more ambitious, I find, than other people. And they've basically had more of a focus on augmented reality. It's called the Holo-Lens, their newest version of this idea of VR, where instead of it being like a complete closed off and you are only seeing screens, instead it's a sort of like the Google Glass idea, but completely covering your eyes, that can then project things there via essentially like holograms, let's call it that for now, where it's like a 3D and like thing that you can interact with in a 2D plane. So if anyone's ever played on the 3DS, the game in which you shoot faces that are flying around with balls, it's essentially that, but on a much more, you've got wearing glasses, this is going on.
I that's something I really want to see, because when motion was the biggest thing, with Nintendo did that first, which Nintendo actually kind of did VR first, if you think about it.
No, they were very far away from that.
Yeah, but they you know what I'm talking about, though.
The Virtual Boy, we don't like to talk about.
But just for a quick mention.
Neither Nintendo.
Just for a quick mention. But they did motion with the Wii. Then PlayStation have PlayStation Move. And then, like the HoloLens, Microsoft came out with Kinect, something that was similar but a step up. And I would say the Kinect, personally from my experiences playing it, kind of sucked. So I don't know.
Well, the thing with the Kinect was and I agree with you there, it did suck for gaming, but it was a lot better in terms of practical applications to use with the PC. Now, and that was the thing, like when that was given to like developers and stuff, the stuff that they did with it was insane, but we never really saw it come to fruition. And it's one of the things that I'm kind of excited about with this idea of the Holo-Lens. In gaming, the only thing they've showcased so far was someone playing Minecraft on it, because obviously they own it now. Essentially, there's like a little Minecraft world of effectively Lego that's on his like actual, shelf and counter that he can play around with and flip his fingers around and move blocks. So they've showcased, as far as we've seen so far, that there's no sort of peripheral you need for your hands, as opposed to like say the Rift, you need the what's it called, the Razor? Is it called that? Or like the gloves that they're working on and stuff. Instead of that, it's literally just your hands and moving, so you don't have like a real tactile feedback. But no, it looks quite interesting. But the big question to ask you guys: do you think this is going to change the face of gaming as we know it? Because a lot of people have been sort of touting that.
It could change the technology industry altogether. I don't know if it'll be good for gaming. I imagine, Oculus will be great for first-person gaming, no doubt. I don't know if it'll take over gaming, though.
Well, I think what's going to end up happening is virtual reality is going to become one of two things, probably both. The first is for the hardcore gaming enthusiasts, which are the ones that, we get the flight sticks when we play our space sims. You get 4K TVs and try to get 3D with that as well to make your experience as immersive as possible. And the other application is for more business type stuff, because virtual reality changes the way that you interact with things in general. Because especially with any kind of tracking gloves or tracking system that can track the rest of your body, you can interact with things in a three-dimensional space in a way that you couldn't have before because of the way that, we view everything two-dimensional on screens. And even in 3D, it's still a two-dimensional plane because you can't put your hand into it and fuck around with what's going on. Whereas, let's say you mix an Oculus Rift with the Kinect 2 that they have. They have the Kinect for Windows right now. That's pretty neat in terms of the way it works, but they just don't have a lot of functionality with it yet. But if you were to combine the two together, have body tracking with the Kinect and the visual head tracking, all that other shit with Oculus Rift, you could create a three-dimensional operating system in which you have to reach out and you have to be active with your entire body to interact with this virtual space, which would be really neat. And I think it would change the way that we feel about technology and just change the way we interact.
It'll be like some Minority Report shit, certainly.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I think the biggest one, the most exciting thought, like, as we've all said, like, the Sony's Morpheus and the Oculus Rift will only really work with a first-person game, and a first-person shooter, horror, whatever, right? One of the reasons why I'm so excited about this new Microsoft HoloLens is that has a lot more capability. Like, okay, third-person games and stuff wouldn't work. Strategy games really would. Like, imagine you've got your desktop, you're looking down, and you're seeing your units there, and you're, like, grabbing them and throwing them across the battlefield. It would be like a really aggressive version of Risk,
God,
that are actually all completely animated.
That'd be fucking awesome.
That's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons why I'm very excited about this, and I think that the HoloLens has more of a sort of more potential rather than the Oculus. Now, that said, obviously, I haven't had a chance to get my hands on a HoloLens yet, but the concept alone makes me very interested. Now, I like being immersed, don't get me wrong, but that has more applications and more potential.
That's true, and I think it's just because of how it's more centered around a different kind of experience. Because let's say the Rift eventually incorporates a forward-facing camera, which I don't think it currently does, but it wasn't something that I was able to see when I tried it out. And it's able to see what's in front of you and then use that to project a type of holographic display over your desk or anything like that, much like the HoloLens does. Then it could fulfill both of those roles while keeping you in that fully immersive experience. So it's more just a question of application and how the technology evolves, because we don't know how long it's going to take for the HoloLens to come out. The Rift is on a pretty good schedule. We haven't really heard much about Project Morpheus, but I think it all boils down to application.
I'm curious to actually see which one will work better with all these space sims that are coming out, because if you kind of think of what the HoloLens would do, they'll have like controls that kind of fit with the game's style.
No,
on your desk.
it's going to be the Rift. I'm just saying this right now because
it depends on which game. Star Citizen, I could not take it. I would not be able to deal with it the way it works in terms of physics. But Elite Dangerous, I would agree.
No, like what I'm saying is that the HoloLens, in terms of the experience that you would get with a HoloLens versus the experience that you would get with a Rift, the Rift is infinitely better because the HoloLens wouldn't have you fully immersed within that three-dimensional space. Because when I was playing through Elite Dangerous with the Rift, like I would look left and I could see out the window to my left. Look right, see out the window to my right. Sure, you can do that with head tracking with the HoloLens, but it's not the same thing.
Well, as well, it's like one of the things that you basically nailed on the head is that, like, as I said, like the applications for the HoloLens are, for me anyway, there's a lot more potential there with different game genres. Now, as you put it though, if you had forward-facing cameras on the Rift for each eye, it would be perfect, and there'd be no issue. You could actually have all the experiences of the HoloLens, and also have the sort of more immersive, more inclusive version of the Rift. And like that would be a lot better because you have both choices there as opposed to the HoloLens. We'll see what the Rift comes out with, because obviously it's still in development kit 2, and there's probably going to be a third one around. But they've already seen a large amount of success. But the big question to ask then is, with this whole VR and augmented reality thing coming up, it might come to a point in which it'll be like the VHS Betamax or the Ultra HD DVD, and the Blu-ray. Like we might have a sort of how to put it, like a sort of like genre war, or like a technology war in terms of which one is better than the other, and one will kill off the other. So it'll be quite interesting to see the two of those there. So what sort of things would we really, of those two, what do you think are going to be the better ones, or would you like something that does both?
Probably both. Like I said, it's a little too early to tell just because we won't necessarily see the full application of the technology until it's out there in a commercial setting. That being said, I'm interested to see how these are going to be implemented in a social sphere, especially with Oculus being owned by Facebook. Because imagine, so we have things like Second Life out there where it's an alternate three-dimensional social universe that you can interact with other people's avatars. So what if we
and fuck other people's avatars as well? Let's talk about that right now.
That's true, yeah. So what if they had an evolution of social media where instead of going onto a website, you go into a digital social realm where you interact with other people across on the other side of the world, but within this virtual space where you feel like you're right next to them and you can speak with them.
So essentially like a massively multiplayer game. Like, I remember Facebook was saying something along the lines of that they were wanting to do that. As a gamer that's incredibly antisocial, I'm not really interested in that. Like, I play World of Warcraft on my own. Someone's like, hey, can you help me out with this guild? And I'm like, no, fuck off. And I'll like run away. But no, that doesn't really interest me. But what does interest me is, in terms of like when multiple people are using it and stuff for like co-op games and things like that, I reckon it'd be a good laugh. The only thing that I need to ask you as well, this is one of the reasons why I'm asking, would it change the face of gaming as we know it? Will we, because right now, obviously, the biggest market of gaming that we're seeing right now is first-person shooters, and there's a lot of YouTube fodder in terms of first-person horror games. Do you think we'll see a rise in them if this thing takes off? And will that effectively kill third person, or like remove the more traditional platforming games? Or do you think it'll be fine, everything will keep going as it is?
I don't think it will kill it. I do think that the first person part of the industry is going to expand by a lot, but when it comes to gaming experiences, obviously people are going to want a lot of different diverse things. Strategy gamers are not going to just go and be hardcore first-person shooter gamers just because the Oculus Rift is out. They're going to want an experience that is more for them. So I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of competition in this realm for trying to bring those other genres into the new gaming sphere of virtual reality. But I don't think that the Oculus Rift or Project Morpheus or virtual reality in general is going to kill the other side.
Well, we've only seen a little bit of these things, especially the HoloLens, so it is kind of early to tell the effect that it will have. We're starting to see the effect of the Oculus Rift. But something similar that's been happening with the gaming industry is we've been seeing PC consoles actually release, and that has been a very, very strange thing. An example of that would be the Alienware Alpha, and a lot of these were actually supposed to be Steam machines, from what I've heard. But since the Steam machine's official delay, a lot of these companies decided to just roll out their own thing. Have you guys gotten a chance to see any of these PC consoles, and what do you think?
Well, I haven't had a chance to really see them, but what I've said a lot is I am both worried about them and very excited for them. See, obviously Steam has the lion's share of the PC gaming market. I think it has something crazy like 70% of all market share on PC. On the PC market share is currently about 15%. Now, one of the big things for me is if this thing really takes off, then maybe traditional PC gaming as we know it will start to become more consoleized, which makes me sound like a horrible prick. But I really like just the ability to use my keyboard and mouse and not a controller. And, not be sat on the couch. I like to, have that sort of more immersive experience where I'm, there with my flight stick, blitzing around with something instead of, being on the couch with a controller, having that disconnect. It's less immersive for me. But it's one of the things that I find will really change things up. Like, adding the PC effectively into the console market surely will stir things up. Like, what do you guys think about that?
So the way I look at it is it's both a good and a bad thing. It just depends on where it goes from here, because with PC consoles, that it does one thing in terms of stimulating competition in the console market, and trying to push forward innovation, everything. Also giving people who don't really want to get into the whole hardcore exclusivity market of the Xbox One and PS4, they can go into the PC market, which is a lot more open in terms of peripherals and things like that. You can use any controller on it that you want. You can use any fucking flight stick that you want if you want to use a flight stick, things like that. But and it also does the solid of going out and giving PC gaming to people who are too stupid to build their own computer. Anyway.
It's a nice way to put it. Yeah, just insult the audience, why don't you?
Oh, no, that's me being nice. But the kind of dark side behind it is there's a possibility if PC consoles become really profitable that it could dumbify the PC market, I guess. That's like a horrible word to use because it's not even a correct
It's
word.
not even a real word.
Yeah. But
who's stupid now?
You're dumbifying me by saying that.
Dumbification.
But have you built your PC yet?
Yes. I don't know where that joke was supposed to go. You know that I built a PC back in December.
Yeah, like we've been talking about this for quite a while.
I've said
you call
it.
like console gamers idiots, and then you say dumbify. That's what I was trying to get with.
Well, you're not exactly the sharpest stick, are you?
Anyway, when you have a popularized console, whether it's PC or PS4 or Xbox One, because you could technically say that they are PC consoles since they have PC-based components in them. It's a lot different, but at the same time,
yes,
there are similarities between the two, because with a PC console, you would have a slightly more closed architecture. It wouldn't be as easy to open up and throw whatever you want into it. Just kind of things like that. And what could happen is we could see a reduction in the PC market that's already not as healthy as the console market, since we've seen more console purchases than PC peripheral purchases. I don't know. It seems like it could impact the sphere negatively.
I'm for it, and I'm also against it. Like the big thing for me that I really like the idea of is the fact that it'll get more people into sort of like the modern day gaming ability. I mean, like let's be fucking honest. When the PS4 and the Xbox One were released, they were already outdated by about 3 years in terms of technology with what was currently available on PC then. Obviously, not everyone has the money to, get SLI Titans inside their computer rig. You know, we're not all Total Biscuit here. But one of the things that I'm very worried about...
I built a PC...
Well, no, let me finish. One of the things that I am worried about, however, is if these PC consoles also allow people to upgrade and things like that as they're going along down the line, and because all of these Steam machines, and I'm using big air quotes here, are going to be linked to Steam, it means other sites like GOG and, you know, Green Man Gaming, Humble Bundle, and all these other places that you can get these games will sort of, maybe it might fall by the wayside. It might take a massive chunk out of their market share, which is a problem when it's monopoly. Like, I like Steam. It's the only DRM that I do like. But when you have, you know, like this sort of closed off, like, you'll never be able to get EA games on it, which is a fucking good thing. But people that want to play Battlefield and want to play the latest really shit Dragon Age Inquisition won't be able to get it there. So that's a problem.
Well, you know, you know, this is just a cliff note here. I built, you know, my PC for cheaper than what a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One costs, and it's stronger than them. You know, so economically, consoles aren't making any sense. But, you know, I don't see that happening the Humble Bundle, because who is it? You know, who's going to go from a PC to a PC console? I mean, I don't. Even if the PC console is stronger than my PC, I don't have a desire to go to essentially a console version of Steam. You know, it's something that I can only see happening for people that don't want to build their own computer or don't want to build their own gaming computer, because, you know, I get that it's daunting for people when you build your first computer, because it's, you know, strange, but it's you know, it's essentially, it's just gonna go into the console market. I wouldn't consider this PC console to really affect the PC market as much as the console market.
But one of the things as well to mention is that there's different tiers of Steam machine. One of them is, you know, being a big full-scale computer that can, you know, it's like an absolute powerhouse. But there's other ones that are just designed for streaming from your actual main desktop itself. Now, for those, like, I'm interested in getting one of those for people like me, because I actually there's a lot of games on Steam nowadays that are local multiplayer, and it's kind of hard getting everyone in my room around my desk to play something like that. Whereas if I have a Steam machine in my front room, I can stream to it and everything's all hunky-dory. So things like that, it makes sense, it's a good idea, but, you know, like, I don't know, it's... Obviously, like, a lot of people don't like change, and to talk about change, though, one of the big things is the Steam controller, a fully functional PC gaming controller. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, you know, clearly, you know, it would be out by now if, you know, they delayed that too, wouldn't they? Didn't they?
They've finally come up with a final design.
Okay.
It's going to be releasing sometime later on this year, apparently.
I'm probably going to get it to even just check it out, because I like playing with the controller for certain games. Some games I prefer keyboard. You know, I don't like keyboard on every game. Now, that said, I'm curious to see what it'll be like, because the only version I've seen, and maybe they have they showed off the last version that they're releasing or not?
Yes, they have.
Is it still the like weird looking pad things, or?
Yep, they're still using the haptic feedback trackpads.
Yeah, I get it's gonna be either one of the best controllers or the worst controller. Just by looking at it, I can tell. You know, because Valve are usually geniuses about things, but at the same time, it's so far from like an analog stick and something I'm used to that I can't judge it by looking at it, and I have to just get in there and play a game with it. That said, I don't know how well it would be with a fighting game, you know, where I'd use a D-pad.
Well, like I think the final design that they actually have in the final design that they're showing off, they actually do have an analog stick and four buttons to use, and that's about it. Now, for a fighting game, obviously, like if you're not using an arcade stick or something like a D-pad, then it's going to be quite hard for you. But it's one of the things I'm weirded out by, and it's a good thing, it's a bad thing for me. Like, let's be honest, some games don't work on keyboard, and people can, you know, like, shout and rant and rave about the fact that I'm wrong because I'm a casual. But with games like, say, Dark Souls or a platformer, having only a 8-way directional movement is impossible to actually, you know, fully go through that game. Now, with a controller, that's when it's handy. But with this whole idea of the haptic feedback and these two touchpads, it feels kind of weird for me because you've got no kinetic input. So when you are, like moving up and down, left and right on an analog stick, I can tell what area I'm sort of holding it at because I've got that feedback. Whereas with this sort of trackpad system, apparently it has some form of feedback, but I don't know because I haven't had my chance to get my hands on it yet, and I'm a little bit concerned about it because playing everything. Imagine playing everything on like two mouse trackpads. It'd be weird. It'd be really weird.
Well, how about we throw up a picture of the Portal 2 bindings of the Steam controller, to give everyone sort of an idea of not just what it looks like, but how it would play. Just as an example, and with I had a PS4 a while back, and I didn't care for it, but I liked the controller, and I really liked the touchscreen, and it kind of worked. So, when it comes to that, I think it could work. I still have some concerns because it's such a out there controller that it could easily bomb, in my opinion. But looking at this controller, it shows the what would be originally key buttons or keyboard buttons and mouse buttons to the controller. And clearly WASD is the left movement. Looking around with the mouse is the right one. And then they have the triggers, which are blue and orange portals specifically. And then they have in the middle, which is a very strange one to me.
They don't have a touchscreen anymore. That's one of the things that I was saying.
Okay.
No, well, we're looking at something that's really fucking outdated, so I don't think we should even bother with that. I've linked it there at the bottom, this is the finalized design of the Steam controller. And as you can see there, we now have an analog stick and 4 buttons as an input.
Oh, that's a lot better.
So like that's way out of date what you've been doing. That's like a year and a half old.
That was on their own
The
website.
big thing that to talk about. One of the big things to talk about though is that like this is very new, and we've never seen this before. Now, very new technology either is an absolute flop, or it changes the face of everything, or it's usually just a gimmick that some people will use. Now, for me, I think this is really fucking exciting, what they've been doing. And I like the idea that, they've given you an analog stick so that if you're not comfortable with using both both trackpads at the same time, you can use the analog stick to sort of ease your way in, which is a good idea. As opposed to, just like, here we go, this is new, this is going to scare you. And I'm kind of excited to see what comes of it. The only thing, though, is apparently this can be played with all PC games, because everything's completely bindable, which is great. But I don't know how, you're never going to get a strategy player or, like someone that does a MOBA want to do something other than mouse and keyboard. There's big things like that they'll need to sort of fix.
I think it's more just for options, because I actually have met people who play MOBAs with an Xbox 360 or an Xbox One controller. What they do is they use, what is it? I can never remember the name of the program because I don't really use it, but it's a program where you can bind keyboard commands to the Xbox One controller and the Xbox 360 controller, and they use that to play MOBAs. And I don't know how well it works, but it is something that they do just because they like the feel of it. And so it really all depends on preference. They might just not be great, and it could be because of the controller. They might be better if they hopped onto keyboard and mouse, but in all honesty, it's all down to player preference, what they want to do. Because with Counter-Strike Global Offensive, you see people playing with all kinds of shit, and there are I've definitely seen controller players that can beat keyboard players. I never thought it was possible until I saw 2 people play Counter-Strike Global Offensive with differing types of control input. It was really neat.
I saw someone play it with a wheel and managed to beat people using a keyboard, which is fucking embarrassing.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Absolutely embarrassing.
It's when it comes to like controllers and stuff. If you don't have a choice to use a keyboard and mouse, when it comes to first-person shooters, you adapt actually pretty well. I played nothing but Halo Reach DRM matches for a good 3 or 4 months. I could get a headshot without scoping somebody across map easily. It's just, I would say a keyboard and mouse is easier in terms of getting used to it, but it's not impossible to be good with a controller.
Well, that said, though, like, and obviously we can always say, oh, I've seen control players do this, and I've seen, beat people with mouse. But let's be honest, right? The best case study for this is the Shadowrun game for the Xbox 360, in which they had both PC players on keyboard and mouse and Xbox 360 players on a controller go against each other online, and PC players dominated. Now, it could be because, like the game wasn't made for... it was made more for the keyboard and mouse controls and stuff, but, it sold better on the 360 than it did on its PC, and PC players dominated because of that playstyle. Like, nowadays we've got a new sort of, like, way that the game works, in which you press a button and it pretty much zooms in and locks onto the person, so all you do is slightly tap the analog stick up and press shoot, and you get a headshot, and it's over, and there's very little skill left compared to... Well, it's not skill left, but, like, the sort of, like, the entry level to that skill is nowhere near as high as the skill ceiling needed for something like Quake. Because that's really, Twitch, very fast-paced. You need to get headshots, you need to hit them with a railgun, you need to get exactly perfectly right. And that isn't there with, the controller system.
Going back on topic, with the controller, there are two things I really want to see. Because, even, Valve is known for playtesting to the nth degree. But the controller is still going to have flaws. I guarantee it's going to have some flaws somewhere. And, I'm hoping eventually we're going to see more than one version of it. Instead of there being an analog stick, it's, just the pads and a D-pad, or the button placement's different. And they, you get one that's you prefer. That, and I hope that there's going to be a way for it to be wireless, because I hate having so many wires get tangled up, because it happens to me all the time when I use my Xbox One controller on a game, because... too many wires.
Well, pretty much already confirmed it's going to be wireless. Like, it works like a PS4 controller. You charge it up via a cable, and then after a while, you can play it with the cable, or you can disconnect it and play it wirelessly. That's one of the things I think that they've been focusing on for quite a while, because they understand that, because this is for their, this is for the couch co-op, so.
But I'm talking about in terms of PC, like I don't have Bluetooth on my PC, it's, but at the same time, like, if they had a USB plug-in...
There's a chance it'll come with a dongle. I mean, like, you get that when you get a Logitech wireless control for PC. But look, we've been talking about, like, actual Steam machines for a while. Now, let's talk about consoles themselves. The future of the console era. Do any of you guys think that with this idea of the Steam machine coming to fruition, if it takes off, would that spell a sort of death knell for the console era itself?
No. Not at all.
How come? Why do you think that?
Okay, so the thing about consoles is they have very strong brand loyalty. It's kind of like the Apple Windows thing. Let's face it, Apple has been surging in price for the past few years without any kind of real improvement. All of it's mostly cosmetic and shit. Whereas when you look at Windows, they've been trying... They fail a bit, but they have been trying to kind of push the envelope with what they can do with their operating systems. And it's gotten cheaper and cheaper as time goes on, at least from what I've been seeing. But people still stick with Apple. And you'll see when people buy Apple things, they buy a shit ton of them. When people buy consoles, they usually buy one or the other because they have brand loyalty to that particular company. You see people buy a Nintendo, despite the fact that sometimes they'll get one game for their Nintendo Wii U, or their Nintendo Wii or whatever. But they buy it specifically because it's a Nintendo console. And you'll see people buy PlayStation specifically because it's a PlayStation console. Not because of the quality or anything like that, just because it has the name PlayStation.
That's actually pretty true. I mean, I have owned a Nintendo console. Well, there's always been a Nintendo console in my house since I was, like, one of my literal first memories were my older brothers playing a NES. Like... That's how far back, like, I remember Nintendo. And, with brand loyalty, like, I try and think I'm exempt. I realize I fucking love Nintendo. Even when they do shit that pisses me off, I fucking love Nintendo.
Technically, I could say that I've had a Nintendo console in my house since I was very young, but it's just been the N64 this entire time.
Well, let's talk about that though. I mean, like, I kind of question the idea of brand loyalty because obviously, like, there will be some fanatics and there will be some fanboys on either side that are always talking about, like, well, you see them a lot, and they're like the people that are very passionate about their brand, and that's okay. I do think having brand loyalty to something is retarded, but that's just me. But one of the things that I've noticed is, like, the PS4, in terms of the PS3, a lot more people jumped from Xbox 360 to from the Xbox One to the PS4, as opposed to that. So I don't think it's necessarily, I have a PS1, I have a PS2, I'm now going to buy a PS3, because the PS3's launch was, let's say, less than stellar. Now, when it comes to this, and it's the reason why I'm talking about the idea of the death of consoles. Imagine, if you will, the 4K TV thing, right? 4K TVs are dropping in price exponentially, right? Year on year. And by what? In the next, 10 years, which when the console's life cycle will start to finish off, they might be already the standard. Now, the PS4 and the Xbox One, both of them struggle to run certain games in 1080p. Or, some of them even have them in, 900p, these weird resolutions, like The Order is going to have. And they're obviously saying, it's more cinematic and all these other buzzwords, when really they can't tell the truth that the hardware that we're running cannot run this at a desirable frame rate and resolution. Now, the Steam consoles and these Steam Machine PC consoles that are going to go on the market will be able to do that from day one. And as well, in terms of 4K TVs, I have a PC, I have a 4K monitor, I can play games in 4K. If I had a 4K TV in my front room, its potential would be pretty much wasted by what the consoles are currently offering. A PC console would be able to handle that. Now, that's one of the things that I'm talking about and stuff. If 4K is the standard, in terms of quality between consoles available, the Steam Machine will be leaps and bounds ahead of other things. The only thing that can really get people interested in the consoles are the exclusives. If you like your Mario, you get this. If you like, your Killzone and your Uncharted, you get a Sony console. If you are retarded and you like Halo like Chris is, then you get an Xbox. So that's the only reason I think people would want to stick to a console.
As far as the Steam Machine goes and PC consoles and stuff, as to kind of taking away from the console chunk of things, that might happen a little bit. But at the same time, we also have to look at price. The Alienware Alpha is somewhere in the mid $500 range. So it's $550 or something like that. And I can get an Xbox One usually on sale at GameStop for $300.
Yeah, but which one is more powerful?
No.
What kind of games can I get on it?
No. Here's the thing.
No, well,
the
those,
average. No,
who,
let me finish. Let me finish.
Let him finish.
The average gaming consumer will not be able to tell the difference between gaming on an Xbox One and gaming on an Alienware Alpha. Because when you play a game on an Alienware Alpha, you'll get better lighting, you'll get a little bit more foliage, but in general, the experience, because you're playing with a controller, because you're playing probably on a 1080p TV, it's going to look almost the same, minus the small details that PC gamers are able to see because they're already used to that and whatnot. The Alienware Alpha does not have enough, what's the word I'm looking for? Enough improvements over the consoles to justify an almost $250 increase in price when you could build.
But there is one difference. And yeah, you obviously going to say you can build your PC for cheaper than the Alienware Alpha. There's one difference though, and this is a huge difference that we need to take in consideration in terms of the death knell, maybe, of consoles. Steam. I live in Australia, right? And Grand Theft Auto 5, when it was released, cost me $120 here, right? That's how much, games cost. It's ridiculous. Now, on Steam, I've recently pre-purchased Grand Theft Auto 5, and that cost me $70. That's a big difference in price. We know that there's Steam sales that are insane, and they're 80 to 90% off big AAA titles that have only been released maybe 5 months ago. So they're still that year. So that's one of the biggest things to consider, that obviously there's no used game market, which is a bad thing, but because of how cheap the games are available on Steam, that then is a huge difference in terms of, buyer and, buying power and, consumer choice. I don't want to spend $40 to play the next Zelda game, right? But I would pay $15. But Nintendo will never do a massive sale on that. And outlets never do a massive sale on that because of physical copies. And it's the whole idea, the whole sort of digital world that we're sort of going into now, with the whole, like, a focus on digital. We've got the PlayStation Network, we've got the Xbox Live Arcade, and we've got Steam. And of all of those different ones, the only people that aren't charging the same price of a physical copy for a digital product are Steam. And that, I think, is a big difference.
And I'll go ahead. I'll definitely agree that Steam is a better storefront because of the discounts and the convenience of it, at least. But at the same time, when you look at Steam for new releases, it's not much different, at least in America. Because when I look through Steam for all the new releases, it is the exact same price as the Xbox One or the PS4 version. Now, when the games first come out, there's really no difference. For about 6 months, there's usually not really a huge difference. During the Steam sales, sometimes they'll get 15% off. It's usually not until about a year that the prices really get slashed by a lot during winter sales. So if something comes out in like January, the next following winter sale will probably see it half off or something like that.
Well, we did see games like Shadow of Mordor that were like slashed in half, which was really interesting.
I get that, and there are the occasional exceptions, but in general, across the board, you don't see that very often. So for the consumer to look at the game prices, let's face it, people don't wait for video games. They pre-order video games, they get them on day one or whatever. I mean, the day zero copy of Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, I went to every single GameStop in my city when that game came out on day zero just to see how well it sold. And none of them had the day zero copy stocked in there because everybody had already bought it. In fact, it took them like 3 days to fully restock in order to start selling again. So just based on that in the first few days, it sold out completely, at least in my city. That just shows that when people go and buy things for console, they're all about right now. Let me get it right now. Let me go ahead and play it right now.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, I can download a Steam game at midnight the day it comes out, and just have to wait. I mean,
that's not my point. What my point is that when you're talking about the lower prices on Steam and everything, they would have to wait between 6 months to a full year in most cases in order to even justify getting it for cheaper on Steam. And people aren't going to do that. So in reality, there's no difference between the two in terms of game cost.
Well, Chris, I can very easily disprove everything you've just said. How much did you spend in the winter sale?
That's beside the point.
No.
It's exactly the point.
How much did you spend? How much did you spend in the last winter sale?
About 200.
Okay, how many games did you get for that 200?
Would you like me to answer how many games of the modern day that I got for those 200?
No. I'm going to get to my point. How many games did you buy for that 200?
About 40-ish.
40. All right. Of those 40-ish, how many of those are modern day titles?
None of them.
Now, this is my main point. With the Xbox One and the PS4, no backwards compatibility. Microsoft has said that they're going to try and work for some sort of backwards compatibility with the Xbox One and the Xbox 360, but that's about it. PC, you can play a game from 1991. I can fire up Doom and have a blast on it, on my current system. Now, that's one of the biggest things here. Like, when these consoles are coming out, these new Steam machines, they have a full library of thousands upon thousands of games. Whereas, what's currently available, let's be honest, the console right now, in terms of current gen that's released, is the Wii U in terms of how many games it has for it that someone can go out there and buy. Fucking, when these things come out, that will destroy everything else in terms of just how many games are available for it. And not only that, though, but, like, it's cross-generational stuff. So...
Not only that, but I had an Xbox 360 and I had a Wii. I had a shit ton of digital games because, when it came to older games like Majora's Mask for the Virtual Console, I got it. When it came to Ocarina of Time for Virtual Console, I got it. Link to the Past, all that stuff. I get a Wii U. I don't have any of those Virtual Consoles games anymore because they don't even have that on the eShop for whatever fucking reason. So not only did I, because I really wanted Link to the Past again, I had to rebuy it. With Steam, that never happens. If I want to come back to a game, I can come back to it years and years later. I mean, that's instantly a million times better than consoles right now, because when it comes to...
To jump on that as well, sorry, finish off. But to jump on that as well, though, one of the biggest things with Nintendo, which is one of the things I don't like about them, like I've never had the opportunity to play Earthbound, and that's one of the things because it was never released in the UK. It was a really big thing, and a lot of people say it's one of the best games of all time. I've still never had a chance to play it. I don't want to pay $15 to play a really old game, but if it was a $5, I would. But that's the thing, like games that are old on Steam are very cheap. And because of that, it's good to get
And
into.
I understand that. I just, my final point, kind of the thing that I've been building up to at least, is that when we think about how convenience within Steam and playing old games within Steam, backwards compatibility, all that other shit, we're thinking about people like as consumers that we are. We're thinking about it from our own perspective. To the average person out there, the average console gamer at least, for the most part, they don't give a shit about that. They really don't. Because...
So when you're saying average, you're meaning the person who's like licking the Doritos off his fingers. Is that what you're like? You know, it's not like the pop. Like when we say average movie watcher, you mean like the popcorn chewing
when I mean the
cows.
Average console gamer, I mean the person that stood in line to get an Xbox One on launch and gets every single mainstream title, whether it's from EA, Ubisoft, or whoever, on launch day because they pre-order it fucking like 3 years ahead of time. Anyway, those people that are so heavily fiscally invested in the console gaming sphere do not give a shit about any of the things that you guys have been saying. They don't give a shit about backwards compatibility because they just want to play the newest game. They don't give a shit about the digital stuff because they're probably buying shit used, and you can't buy used games on Steam. They probably don't give a shit about the power of technology because they probably can't build that in the first place, and they'd rather get something that's pre-built that's cheaper. In their eyes, at least, even though it's really not.
I gotta tell you, you're wrong on all of that, because the only reason I went to Steam and went to PC wasn't even because of how less powerful the consoles were. It was because of economical reasons. I mean, the Evil Within right now, if you were to go buy it, it's $60. You know, I'll concede maybe $50. Right now on Steam, it's $20.40. Exactly right now. You know, with
not only that as well though, like let's also mention the fact that with these Steam machines, online is free.
Yeah,
that's huge.
That
whereas I have to pay $40 for the privilege of barely being able to connect to the shitty PSN servers, and like, okay, it's not exactly the most expensive thing in the world, is it? You know, I pay the price of one game for the entirety of the year. Big fucking whoop. But the fact is though, they're having to have a paid for service to get a lackluster service offered for free on PC and therefore on these Steam consoles. That's a big deal to me. And that's something that I think could also be a game changer down the line. Now, obviously, the average person, as you said, Chris, when we talk about the average person, we're not talking about people that actually, you know, read up on games, not like a games enthusiast. Like, we're talking about, like, you know, the Call of Duty bros and the FIFA players, and I'm one too.
We're talking about the people that make up the largest part of the video gaming market share. That's why console gaming's never going to die, because these people that don't read
that entire thing though can be sort of dismissed with the idea of marketing. If Steam market the fuck out of what they're doing and market the fuck out of this, maybe they can dig into that share in a massive fucking way.
Well, with what I was trying to say is, you know, I have friends in that play console games that, you know, have recently gotten the next gen console or still have the last gen console, don't really consider PC gaming an option. And then, you know, they see me, you know, I tell them, you know, I spent like $100 on, you know, like $150 on Steam sales, and I got a shit ton of games, you know, and stuff that is relatively expensive even, you know, for modern day, for a shit ton less. And, you know, when they ask me how much my computer costs, you know, it's a little more than an Xbox One or a PS4, you know, and instantly, you know, they're asking me all these other questions. Even their parents, who only care a little bit about games or care about, you know, the next Call of Duty, have asked me questions about PC. Like, it, just the fact that they know it, they start asking me as many questions as they can. And I consider myself like, or have considered myself to be one of those average console gamers that you're referring to, because there was a point where I didn't want PC gaming. I just wanted my console because I didn't want to build a PC, because, you know, if I fuck up, I fuck up. And, you know, it's not that hard to build a PC in reality. It's this whole thing.
But that said, as I said, it's getting back to Chris's point though. The average person it's like a convenience thing for them. They can just pick up a console, pick up a game, throw it in, and play it. I mean, we see people that buy a PS3 or PS4 just to play Call of Duty, and that's literally the only game they play. And even like the guy at Activision said that people who play Call of Duty aren't gamers. And he said that it's literally they will only play Call of Duty. They're not like the hardcore gamers that we get that know a lot about the gaming industry. And that was him talking about that sort of thing.
But I mean, I'm talking in terms of people who play more than Call of Duty or Minecraft or more than just one game.
Well, no, exactly. But that's the thing, though. Like the majority market share of people that will just literally pick up a console to play one or two games. I mean, this is the thing for me that kind of shocked me. But Sony was saying that the Vita players are really hardcore because they buy more than 5 games. And I'm like, I've got 12 games on my Vita. What the fuck? And that's like the least amount of games I've bought for a console. And that was like an eye-opener to me. I was like, okay, so apparently I'm exceedingly hardcore because I buy more than 2 products for something. Now, let's skip this along, though, because we're sort of, running around the whole situation here. But one of the things that Microsoft tried to introduce with the Xbox One was the idea of an always-online requirement. Do you think we can sort of see that coming to fruition? In terms of like the next generation consoles that all demand this? Or do you think that, because enough people shouting at Microsoft for trying to do that and attempt this, it won't be a thing that we'll actually see in future?
It's probably not going to be a thing. That said, I've recently thought about that, and I think a lot of people actually overreacted because my computer is always on and always online. There's, even I have a microphone plugged in at all times. I don't think there's anyone spying on me. I think people got a little too nervous. But to move to our final topic, we've been talking about PCs versus consoles a lot. Well, we've recently talked about Windows 10 coming out and how it's going to be good for gamers. But there's also SteamOS out there as well, which is currently in beta. What do you guys think about that? Which do you think will end up being the official gaming OS?
I don't like SteamOS.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I don't like it.
What is it about that you don't like? Because you've been playing around with both of these, haven't you, Chris? I think you're the best to actually, give a bit of an opinion on
So
this.
I have 2 throwaway computers. One I loaded up SteamOS on after removing Debian because I was fucking around with something on there. And then the other one has the Windows 10 development build on it. And the reason why I don't like SteamOS is that it is just like every other console operating system out there. The browser sucks balls because it's designed more for controllers than for a keyboard and mouse. The layout just reminds me of a different skin of an Xbox One store screen, to be honest. And the friends list is just like any other there's no real there's
you sound quite defeated.
It's hard to kind of explain it because it's more SteamOS is nothing special.
Is it essentially the big picture mode that you have on Steam where you just click that and it goes into big picture? But the entirety is the OS.
That's basically what SteamOS is. And they have Steam apps that you can get on the Steam store. You've been able to do that for the past year or two. But in reality, the amount that you can do with Windows 10 versus SteamOS is a lot different. Because on Windows 10, you can have 2 monitors, have Reddit open on one, and have fucking a game running on the other. Browse through Reddit while you're doing whatever, and then play a video game at the same time if you are into that shit.
Browsing Reddit.
Whatever. I'm a Redditor. I'm just gonna say it right now.
We learned something.
You're a faggot. No, that's what you mean. You're a faggot. You're not a Redditor. You're a faggot. You're more of a faggot than Kenton.
Oh no, I'm a massive faggot. In any case, when it comes,
I'll quote you on that.
But I think the only real difference between SteamOS and Windows 10 in terms of a place where SteamOS shines better is how easy it is to play a game, because all you do is navigate to where the game is and you click on it. But in reality, that's just like what I do with the fucking console. I navigate to where my game is on the hard drive and I click on it. For Windows 10, you have Steam. It's still that easy, but you have to open up like 5 different things in order to fucking get to
Yeah,
it.
get to that
You
point.
get my point. It's more streamlined on SteamOS, but at the same time, SteamOS is so cordoned off specifically for gaming that I guess it could appeal to people who only use their PC for gaming, but I doubt people that build a computer use their computer specifically for gaming. They do it for other shit as well.
How lightweight is the operating system as opposed to Windows 10? So obviously, like you were saying last time we were talking about it, that Windows 7 is a lot more intensive than Windows 10 is. Is SteamOS even less intensive, or is it more so?
I would say, for at least in my experience, it's about the same. Because SteamOS is based off of the Linux kernel, so it runs about as smoothly as Debian did on my computer. And so there's not a whole lot that's going on in the background. I guess it's kind of a boon behind it because with Windows 10, especially when you start loading up other programs on there, it might go ahead and hit your performance in terms of how much CPU needs to be used for running certain things and shit like that. But with SteamOS, it's more just SteamOS is running in the background. That's it. That's the only thing that can run in the background. Nothing else can run. Then the game comes on. So that's kind of the boon behind it, but I don't see the upside.
I can see it actually working for these Steam machines and the PC consoles, by the sounds of it. But with what Chris has kind of been saying, and it is in beta, but it either needs a lot of work or it needs to go to these new PC consoles and stay there.
Yeah. I don't see, because in reality, you can just click the checkbox of the Steam settings that says start Steam right away, and then always start Steam in big picture mode when your computer turns on. It always starts you in big picture mode, and you can still get to everything that's Windows related. So that's the way I see it, at least. That's what I do.
Well, one of the things as well with these Steam machines is that apparently, like, you can do whatever you want with them. And that's one of the things that Valve have been talking about, the idea that you can run whatever operating system you want on them. We're all for that. So, like, that's at least a good thing. And like Microsoft have said that they're looking more into, focusing on the PC gaming market because there've been quite a lot of cohesion with PC gamers in the past with problems of games and older games not working on current generation systems. Hopefully we'll see something like that down the line. But, like, do you think they're actually going to make a sort of big impact with this in terms of, like, the future of what they're doing? Or do you think it's just all fluff?
SteamOS? No, I don't think it's going to make any kind of impact.
I think the only way SteamOS could actually be decent if it stops being Linux-based and becomes its own thing by itself. That's, my 2 cents on it anyway. And it's maybe because I'm not a big fan of Linux overall, by comparison to Windows. I know people have their opinions on it, but yeah, I think SteamOS is kind of doomed anyway.
It'll be interesting to see the future of the SteamOS, because obviously it's still in beta right now, and down the line it'll be interesting to see how, when both Windows 10 and SteamOS are in their final releases, how they compare up to one another. But let's start wrapping this up right now. So, Kenton, what have you been playing this week?
I have been playing a bit of Half-Life and Gary's mod this week. I've been kind of, I haven't had the time to really get into anything.
So, I've been continuing my playthrough of Alien Isolation on the PC, which is still fucking amazing as ever. I also played the Evolve closed beta, which was interesting.
It's unbalanced. I've had it since the alpha. I can't stand it because it's ridiculously unbalanced.
I don't know. Like, I guess I just didn't play it enough to really get the unbalanced feel for it. I do think that it weighs a little bit in favor, but I don't know.
What the way Evolve works is, you're supposed to be a creature, if you are the monster, that evolves slowly and gets more powerful. So it makes sense that it's slightly weaker. It's the fact that, in my experience anyway, I've never seen the monster get away the second you find them, and I've never been able to get away the second they find me. And that's instantly a problem because it shortens the matches, which are supposed to be 20, 30 minutes long, to 5 minutes.
Really? Because I've been able to get away a couple times.
No, it's this tracking system.
I think you might just be a casual.
No, like I'm saying, whenever I go up against the monster, it can't get away from me either. Like it's that unbalanced. I feel that in terms of and it depends on the monster. Too. I imagine like the one that they start with is bullshitty stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
I didn't really feel enough from the game to pre-order or anything like that, so I'm just gonna kind of I've been playing the beta, and I'll keep playing until it shuts off. But I'll probably get the game when it's like half off or something, unless they make significant amounts of changes to it that justify me spending $60 on it. But I mean, it's fun. Nevertheless, it's fucking gorgeous too. And yeah, so other than Alien Isolation and Evolve, I haven't really been playing anything else.
Well, I decided to kickstart Middle-earth Shadows of Mordor Assassin's Creed Special Edition. It's actually quite good. Well, I'll be honest, it's mediocre at best, but I really like the idea of the Nemesis system, because it really makes every single time you play through the game different. And it's got like a sort of like non-linear storyline, because you've got like rivalries against these guys, and they've got a lot of personality behind them. So it's quite nice. But look, that was everything from us at Good Gamers. And if you are watching this podcast from the future on your VR headset and you realise that everything we've been talking about is absolute bollocks, then fuck yourself. You know, we're not Prometheus, are we? We're not Nostradamus. So yeah, fuck yourself with your holographic cock.
What was that?